So let's talk about audio levels and what are our target numbers. First of all, audio is measured in decibels. That's what the dB stands for. And we're going to go over in Premiere in a second to see where do you find that measurement, where do you see your audio levels. But here's some numbers for you to write down to start with. The most important ones are the ones under dialogue and music. So when someone is speaking, that's dialogue, we want our decimal range to be between -6 to -12 decibels. Right? This is a really important one to write down. Dialogue should be between -6 to -12. Music that would be playing at the same time as dialogue, something in the background, should be between -18 decibels to -22 decibels. They're saying that this should give us an overall mix between -10 to -14. I take this a little bit with a grain of salt. These two specific ones are the most important. Sound effects could have a pretty big range of going between -10 and -20. Maybe you have spikes going up higher to -8. All right, so as I said, these are the most important numbers. You really don't want to be moving above -6. So where do we see this in Premiere? I am in the editing mode. I have my timeline here, and just to the right, you may have to scoot things over. This is where you're going to see your audio levels. So the first one I'd like to set up with, if you put on your timeline, is called Challenge or Disaster. I would like this to be first on your timeline, and then underneath that we're going to put the audio track, the one that is just an audio wave. It's called Maiden, and you don't see like a video icon with it. It indicates this is just audio. So drag that and put that on A2. And then we're going to mute that. So click on the M to mute it. So the Challenge or Disaster has dialogue on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play this back and see if it stays in this range of -12 to -6.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Do you see how Premiere leaves these little bars here? And to help you be able to keep track.
1, and lift off.
Okay, so we saw that on the left channel it was going up higher than -6 just a little bit, but the right channel was staying right at -6. So I'm going to actually say that's pretty good because those were our peaks and the majority of the time was here. Not too surprising because this was professionally mixed. So that is fine. That's an example of what we're looking at. Maybe it's just peaks a tiny bit higher, but that was pretty good. So now I'm going to mute this and unmute the music. And let's start that over. All right, so that's a lot higher than I want it to be. I want the music to be in this range of the -18 to -22. I want it to be down here about 12 decibels lower than it currently is. All right, so to be able to adjust the volume, let's make sure that you have the waves for the music file. This track is really expanded. So go to the gray bar here and expand it down if it's not. Then you can see the volume adjuster, which is just like the opacity adjuster that we talked about when I was introducing colors in your videos. And now you can click and drag this. So because I want this whole thing to be lower, I could click, and as I'm dragging it down, you should see that little box that's telling you how many decibels you are lowering it. So I think I said it needs to be lowered about 12. So let's check that out. So I've let that go, and let's play it again. All right, so now I'm hitting between, like, I'm around -21, and okay, occasionally it just peaks a little bit, so maybe I could drag it down just a bit more. Just a little bit more to play it safe because I really want to be able to hear the dialogue and have this in the background. Okay, so that's pretty good. I went a little bit low, so final adjustment here. At this point, because it's hard to make small adjustments with this slider, with this clip selected, I can go up to my effects control, open volume, if it's not already open, and where it says level, then I could adjust it here or I could put in a number. So maybe I want to adjust it or put in -15 instead. It's going off on its own. Okay, and then it made the adjustment for me. Okay, so that is pretty good. If I decided I wanted to get rid of what I did and I want to set it back over here in the effects control panel, I have the reset parameter option. Okay, moving right along, I do want to point out how you have color bars above some of your clips here, and your colors may be different. If your bar above your clip is red, that means that your computer is going to have a hard time playing it back, and you may get some skipping, you may have some lags, things like that. This will happen as you start to add more and more effects to your video. So one thing you can do is you can make an in, hit I on the keyboard, and an out point, O on the keyboard, and then go up to sequence, render into out, and it might take a second. And basically this is making it into an MP4 that is stored in the background. So temporarily, until you start to edit it again, you can see an accurate playback. This is really useful. I'm starting it out right at the beginning simply because it's harder for my computer to record the screen and play back things at the same time. But normally you only do this once you start adding a lot of effects and you notice the Premiere's skipping a lot or giving you a hard time playing it back. It's red up here. And if you have a section, know what it looks like or what it will look like once you make it into the final movie, then you can make that in and out point, go up to sequence and render it. And so now it's green, which means that I'm getting an accurate playback. So let's listen to this audio level. Oh, I haven't muted. Sorry about that. Okay, we see a lot of hitting -3. So because the audio replaces the dialogue here, it would be fine if this audio was in the dialogue level of between -6 and -12. I saw it hitting -3 an awful lot. So I have a choice here. I could lower the volume. I could also lower the gain. Volume is output. That is like you're cranking up the volume. My audio was recorded at one level, and then I send it out at a different level. Gain is the level in which it's recorded. So if I wanted to actually make these audio waves smaller, as if it had been recorded at a lower level, I could reduce the gain. And so to do that, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to audio gain, and I'm going to put in where it says adjust gain by -3. And now watch what's going to happen to my audio waves. They're all reduced a little bit. So now let's play it back. Okay, now it's staying between -6 and -12. My computer's just is skipping. It's having a hard time playing back and recording. All right, I could have done that with the volume. I could have brought it down 3 decibels, but I just wanted to show you an example of if everything needs to go down, maybe sometimes it's better just to reduce the gain. All right, now let's look at this example over here, the Brenna Coleman final. We have a little clip from this where she's going to introduce members of her family, and we're going to look at our audio sliders over here to see if they're always staying between -12 and -6.
So, what is your name?
My name is Finbar Coleman.
Okay, so that was pretty good. When he spoke, it was between -6 and -12.
My name is Tyrone Coleman.
Perfect, between -6 and -12.
My name is Nolly Coleman.
Between more.
My name is Miss Allison Coleman.
Okay, so that one went down an awful lot. So let's zoom in, ++ on the keyboard. And you can actually see in the audio waves where it dips down. So you can see everyone else speaking, introducing themselves, and then hers
My name is Allison Coleman.
goes down quite a bit, and it really goes down here. So I want to be quite zoomed in, hit plus on the keyboard until you are zoomed in. So this is the audio that we need to increase, but we don't need to increase the other ones. So we need to add keyframes. And we can add keyframes up here, just as we did with our effects, where we would click here first, we would adjust our level, and then use this keyframe down here. We can also do it right on the timeline. And with audio, I find it works well to do it on the timeline. So what I want is to lock in this audio level and then make a slow peak, so it doesn't jump up, but a slow peak to bring, when she starts to speak, up. Keep it up. They actually might even need to go up more here because you can see how it really goes down, and then bring it down to where it was. To create the keyframe, I'm on that volume and I'm going to hit the Control key and click. Right? And now I'm going to move over a little bit more and do another click, move to the end and do 2 more. All right, so my outer ones are going to be my locks. They're the ones that are going to keep it at that level. My inner ones are going to be the ones that I'm going to use to raise up. And notice how far you're raising it. So I see I'm raising it 6 decibels. And this one might need to go up even more. I'm going to try 10 decibels because her voice really drops down here. So now let's play it back.
Oh no.
My name is Allison Coleman.
Okay, so that stayed now within the -6 to -12. So that's creating keyframes. If you needed to get rid of a keyframe, you can right click on it and you can choose delete, and you also can continue to edit and drag them once they're there. I'm going to now zoom out a little bit and let's look at this one over here. All Alone School Version, this is called. So there's stuff that's in very low. I see something's going to happen here. Okay. It gets very loud. So Premiere gives you this warning when you've hit the 0 point, which you don't want to do because it's extremely loud. It keeps this red marker on here. So you've ever been editing and maybe you have your volume down, you're not even paying attention, and you look over here and you see the red. That means at some point your audio peaked way too high. It's giving you a warning message. So here's another example of where we're going to need to go in and tweak it, because once we come down here and this guy's talking, let's listen to this.
Well, me and my brother Rick grew up playing music together.
Okay, so he's going to need to come up a little, but not nearly as much as that. So we're going to need to make our anchor points. So plus, plus, zoom in. You can also use the wheel on your mouse to kind of scroll around. And first thing I want to do is I want to bring this level down an awful lot. So I'm going to make my anchor points holding the control, or it's a command on a Mac. And I'm going to drag that and then make one around over here. So this needed to come down probably about 10 decibels at least. Still is going to be pretty loud. So let's start with 10 decibels approximately, and then drag this one down as well. Now let's play it back. Okay, that's better. So now it's just peaking a little above -12. I could go up a little bit more. And I remember, if it's hard to get the exact number you want by dragging this, you can go up to the effects control and you could either use the slider or just put in a number. If I wanted to say like, okay, maybe I want this to be -8 instead, or -9, which is hard sometimes to grab this and get it to be exactly just by 1. All right, so when I'm creating it here, I want to make sure that my timeline's right in the middle. If not, where I am in my timeline here, it is creating this as a keyframe. So I have that keyframe now where it kind of brings the volume up, which actually could work. So we're fine there. And then I would need to go down a little bit and bring this guy up. If I remember correctly, he was a little bit too quiet.
My brother Rick grew up playing music together.
Yeah, he needs to come up a little bit more. So I'm going to make another peak here, make a keyframe at the end, and make a keyframe here, and let's just bring him up like 3 or 4 decibels. And play that back.
Rick grew up playing music together.
All right, and that works. So now moving down the timeline, another one here. We can see just looking at this that the audio levels are pretty low. So let's play this back. I'm just going to start it a little bit in. So we're peaking at negative 27. We need to increase an awful lot. So here's a good example of where I think it makes sense to start with increasing the gain. If I do all of this through increasing volume, I'm also increasing all of the air. So let's increase those waves, the audio waves. Right click, audio gain, and let's put in a 10 to start with. So I'm not putting in that negative, it's a positive 10, so it will increase it, and now you can see a good increase in the audio waves.
I have ear infection and high fever.
Okay, so she's peaking at negative 12, and that's where we want her just to start. So at this point, I could go back and add more gain. And so this will just add on to it. So now if I say 2, it's adding on to the increase of 10 I already put. And it keeps going up. All right. And at that point, if I feel like maybe I can see some points might be getting into my goal. Okay, so these parts are starting to get to be higher. So at this point, I would now start to do my final adjustments by putting in my keyframes and tweaking the audio levels here. All right, so there are a lot of different choices of how you might be working with the volume. It might be just adjusting the slider here. You can make overall adjustments here. It might be adding keyframes and having to go and tweak it. Or it might be, if you have something like this where there's very little audio wave to start with, you want to increase the gain. Or if there's a lot to deal with in the beginning, decrease the gain. Right? In the next video, I'm going to go over how I want you to go about your homework.